This is Yako, the boy from the miserable alley. He's useless. He saw the most precious person in his life die before his eyes because of an illness that no one could cure. And from that moment on, that boy made a vow to himself that he would never let anyone go through what he went through. Yes, I will be the super doctor who treats any injury. Indeed, years passed, and Yako grew up. He became the greatest doctor and pharmacist in the world. There was no disease for which he couldn't invent a cure. In short, he was a miracle in every sense of the word. All the scientists from around the world, whenever they faced a treatment, would immediately go to him and get the answer from him. His life was perfect, but unfortunately, he no longer slept. He was pushing himself hard at work day and night, sleeping only 1 hour a day. Anyway, one day, as usual, he sets his alarm and that's it. He's going to go rest. But the surprise, as soon as he opens his eyes, he's shocked. Who is this girl standing in front of me? Where am I, and what am I doing here? The girl tries to calm him down, but the boy isn't all there. He immediately runs towards the window and looks out. He discovers that he has been transported to another world and is currently in this body. He says, I must be dreaming. I'll wake up again in a bit. But the girl with him brings him back to his senses and says, it seems your brain got zapped after the lightning struck you yesterday. The boy then starts to comprehend the situation he's in and asks the girl about her name. He finds out that she is Talon, and she takes him on a tour of the palace to familiarize him with everything in it. We learn that Yako is now from a noble family, and they have servants and attendants and all that fancy stuff. And it's not just that. No, his family are all royal physicians, and it seems there's no one like them. Anyway, Talon takes him to reintroduce him to his whole family. This is his father, whose name is Bran, and he is the head physician of the entire kingdom and very famous. Lastly, his mother, Lisa, his sister Mila, and finally his older brother, Firo. We then learn that his brother is on a scientific trip outside the kingdom's borders, and how much their father has very high hopes for them, especially since they are among the most skilled physicians in the kingdom, not to mention their sacred abilities. Yako says to her, what do you mean by sacred abilities? And Talon is shocked. Don't tell me you forgot them too? You were very skilled in using water magic. And at that moment, we learn that these sacred abilities are what determine if you are from a noble family or from the common folk, and if he can't use them, he will be expelled from the palace, and his father will disown him just like that. Here, the boy gets terrified and says to her, wait a second, and of course he pretends to have forgotten everything. And in short, he acts as if he lost his memories, so she doesn't find out that he's been swapped into this body or anything. Anyway, after that, he goes to his room and says, I wonder how this water magic is done. And he starts imagining the chemical structure of water molecules, and suddenly, a strange energy surrounds him. He can use water magic with ease. The boy is shocked, especially when he can't cancel the magic. He runs towards the window and whistles, and boom, a waterfall floods the entire place with everyone in it. But in the end, he manages to cancel it and returns to normal. Meanwhile, Talon is in the garden, and we see that she got completely drenched. Oh my, but she is happy because he managed to remember his abilities again. Anyway, what matters is that Yako says, do I have other abilities, or what's the story? And indeed, he discovers that he can create any type of metal he thinks of, and his left hand creates it while his right hand cancels it. Suddenly, there's a knock on the door, and Yako quickly cancels the metals he created before Talon comes in. She informs him that he must meet his father so he can check on his health, but she first asks him if he remembers his medical knowledge or not, because his father always asks him about methods of making rare medicines and treatments, and if he can't answer, it will be a big problem. And indeed, the boy pulls himself together and goes to meet his family, who are very happy that he is well and that nothing happened to him from the recent accident. And we were just saying, take it easy. Suddenly, Bran asks him about the method of making a very rare treatment for healing wounds, but for whom? Yako, the super cool one, answers easily and tells him the method without a single mistake. And here, Bran says to him, bravo, I think you're fine now and you must continue your lessons with Noor. Indeed, he pulls himself together and sits with Noor. And we learn that she is his private tutor, who trains him on developing his magical skills and also teaches him medical sciences because she is very smart and was a student of Bran in the past. But she feels something is wrong and tells him that his way of speaking is different. Even his personality seems to have changed. He's calm and composed, and this is not his nature. All of this is one thing, and that he doesn't remember anything about her is another thing entirely. At this point, Yako tells her that he has indeed changed a lot and has probably lost his memory too because of the lightning strike that hit him yesterday. Noor calms down a bit and says, don't worry, I'll start with you from the beginning, and bit by bit, you'll remember everything. Initially, we learn that this world has 5 types of magical forces: water, fire, earth, air, and finally, void. Suddenly, Yako interrupts her and asks, what is void magic? Noor says to him, basically, no one knows exactly what it is, and despite that it exists within the sacred maps and charts. Anyway, I doubt its existence in the first place. And when he asks her if there is anyone who can create any materials they want, she looks at him and says, "Stop talking nonsense. There's no such thing at all." And here, Yako is shocked because he can do that easily. Anyway, what matters is that she takes Yako and goes to the river and asks him about his magical staff, which amplifies their abilities and helps them in training. Even though Yako saw it, he didn't bring it with him because he didn't know what it was for in the first place. Noor then gives him her staff and says, "I want you to make a water spear towards the river." Of course, the boy doesn't know what she's talking about. Noor says to him, "It's very simple," and she executes the strike in front of him. And boom, a tremendous energy surrounds him. A protection dome is struck towards the river, and something incredibly awesome happens. She explains the steps to him completely and says, "Come on, try it, champ." And indeed, Yako does as she says. And yes, an energy larger than any energy you could ever imagine in your life occurs. A terrifying tsunami strikes towards the river, destroying the entire place. The boy gets terrified and throws the staff on the ground, and at that moment, the magic is cancelled. But Noor can't comprehend what happened in front of her. She says to him, "Since when do you unleash such power with it?" She measures the amount of his magical power, and it makes her. After that, Yako uses it, and it completely shatters. Noor is terrified and says, "This is impossible," and suddenly, a light emerges from his shoulder. When Noor sees it, she is shocked. This is one of the sacred seals mentioned in the ancient books. How wonderful! Anyway, they take each other to go. Yako then notices that she isn't seeing well because her glasses broke, so he offers to help her. Anyway, they sit to rest a bit on the way, and Yako says to her, "Since your glasses broke, do this move, and you'll see well." She thinks he's joking at first, but as soon as she hears his words, her vision actually clears. And in those moments, Yako discovers a new skill he has. He is able to determine the location and type of injury in anyone in front of him. Noor says to him, "How did you know what happened?" And when he tells her what he sees, she becomes terrified of him, especially when she notices that his imagination is not visible on the ground. No, the girl freezes in place and falls to the ground. He tries to help her, but she runs away from him and flees the place. The next day, dramatically, Yako is in his office, and he tells him that Noor has contracted a fever and is very sick, not to mention that she suddenly decided to resign, and he asks him if he has an explanation for what is happening. Yako thinks for a bit and says, "I am not the cause or anything." And here, Bran gives him a dose of medicine and a message, asking him to go visit her and check on her. At that time, Yako takes the medicine and goes to prepare himself to go to Noor, but he says that his father's medicine is just a nutritional supplement, and he doesn't think it will cure her fever, so he decides to make the appropriate medicine for her himself. Indeed, he pulls himself together and goes to Noor, and the shock is that the girl is terrified of him, to the point that she is hiding inside an iron armor and talking to him from behind the door. She thinks he came to finish her off because she discovered his secret. Yako says to her, "What nonsense are you talking? You're ruining your brain, lady." He tries to calm her down and let her know that he came by his father's order, not to mention that he wants to check on her. He came and brought her a dose of medicine made by his father and another medicine specifically for her condition that he made himself. And that crazy girl shouts and sits on the ground saying, "It must be poisoned. You want to kill me." She tries to trick him so he doesn't kill her, and she won't tell anyone his secret ever. Yako says to her, "Lady, I swear I won't come near you. Just listen to me because I'm the one who will get a stroke and die because of you." He starts to make her understand that he really needs training and says to her, "I don't know anything about the power I have, nor can I control it, so you must stay with me and not leave me." Not only that, but she is the only one who found out everything about him and also knows his strength. Suddenly, he brings her a flower he had brought with him and says to her, "Anyway, I can't force you to do anything, whether you accept or refuse, so I'd like to thank you for everything you did for me." And he leaves her after that and walks away. After a while, Noor sits by herself thinking about the words Yako said to her and how much he needs someone by his side. And despite being terrified, she decides to help him in the end. The next day, immediately, Yako is walking in the garden alone, and suddenly someone calls him. Yes, Noor goes to him and says, "Let's start training now because if you don't control your power, you will destroy this kingdom and everyone in it." And of course, Yako is very happy because he will finally learn. What matters is that they go to a remote area, far from the population, and they start training together, and we notice how much his power is above level, and he messes up the place completely. Anyway, after a while, he returns to the palace, and we find him sitting by himself on the stairs, using his sacred eye skills to determine the locations of injuries among the servants, one after the other. And we learn that when he first discovers the disease, the location of the injury lights up in white, and thus his diagnosis of the disease is perfect. Even Talon finds out that she has an injury in her hands because of her work. Yako then writes down all the diseases they have, pulls himself together, and goes to his father's lab to make the appropriate medicine for them. He starts with Talon, of course, and uses his abilities, and if any materials are not available, he creates them normally. Anyway, he spends a very long time and manages to prepare all the medicines he wrote down literally. When he finishes, he pulls himself together and goes to Talon, gives her medicine, and lets her know that this medicine is for the injury in her hands. And Talon, oh my, is extremely happy, not believing herself. Likewise, he goes to each one of the servants and gives them their specific medicine. Everyone is so happy that Yako is surprised because they are happy. At that time, Talon informs him that the servants have never received attention from anyone. All of this is because they are from the general populace, as they say. It is forbidden for senior physicians to examine them or even treat them, and even if they do examine them, the medicine will surely be expensive, and they don't have the money for it. Here, Yako realizes how much he is in a classist world and says that disease, in particular, doesn't distinguish between a minister and a commoner, and that everyone has the right to receive appropriate treatment at any time. After a while, Bran summons Yako, and indeed he goes to him, and there he is surprised that his father and mother don't look so good. He asks them what's going on, and Bran tells him that his sister Mila has contracted a very serious skin disease that has no cure. And the worst is that it is contagious, and that's why she has been isolated, and they prevent him from going to her for any reason. But do you think Yako will stay silent? No. By God. He enters her room and closes the door behind him. And from his father's words, he can determine the type of disease because it is a disease whose treatment was recently discovered in his world before he died. And indeed, he manages to make the appropriate treatment. And as usual, he uses his abilities and the raw materials that aren't available. He creates them himself. As soon as he finishes, he pulls himself together and goes to Mila's room. He dismisses the servants and enters without anyone noticing. He sits next to her and reassures her, promising her that everything will be fine. But the most important thing is that no one knows he entered her room because if Bran finds out, he will yell at him. As soon as Mila finds out that he has medicine, she hides, saying that she hates medicine because it tastes bad, but she is surprised to find that the medicine is just candy, nothing more. So she takes the medicine. Yako then feeds her himself and reassures her, and Mila is very happy. The next day, immediately, we find Bran and Yako sitting with Mila in the room, and it is clear that she has completely recovered and there is no trace left of the disease she had. Bran says, I don't know how this happened, but no one has ever contracted this disease and recovered so quickly before. And of course, Mila refuses to tell the secret or let them know that Yako is the one who treated her. Anyway, what matters is that after a while, we find Yako sitting by himself, and we see that the genius managed to make a microscope to help him see and analyze viruses easily. Suddenly, there's a knock on the door, and the head servant enters. He informs him that Bran needs him urgently, and indeed he goes to see what's going on. There, Bran asks him to get ready quickly because they are going to the royal palace immediately. We learn that the princess is very sick, and her condition is critical. At that time, Yako notices that his father is also very sick, but despite that, they go to the royal palace. As soon as they arrive, the princess's private physician, whose name is Kane, receives them and takes them to the princess. We notice how the place is full of physicians, literally. Anyway, Bran and Yako reach the princess and greet her, and we find her, oh my, sleeping on the bed, not even able to breathe. At that time, Bran starts examining her and takes a drop of her blood. He uses his abilities to be able to diagnose her condition, and after that, he goes to Kane and tells him that her condition, unfortunately, is hopeless, and all they can do is alleviate her pain, nothing more. At that time, Yako is shocked. How can her disease have no cure? Anyway, Bran pulls himself together and goes to make a dose of medicine for her, and Yako finds out that the medicine is just a painkiller, nothing more. At that time, Bran goes to the princess with the medicine he has, and when she asks him if there is any hope that she will recover, he says to her, yes, of course, and has her breathe through the medicine they made. Yako is shocked by what he sees, and while all the physicians have given up on the disease, he uses his sacred eye and manages to determine the disease she has. Yes, a terrifying disease that affects the lungs and completely destroys them to the point that it is called the disease of death. The boy thinks for a bit about a treatment method, and it seems he has the solution, my friend. Suddenly, we find the door opening, and the princess's young son runs to her, crying bitterly over his sick mother, and says to her, don't leave me and go, I want you with me. Here, Yako intervenes and goes to the princess. He asks her to allow him to treat her, and that he will take full responsibility for her condition. Bran goes to him and yells at him, telling him to return to his place immediately. Here, the princess intervenes and silences Bran and speaks to everyone present. She says to them, I can determine well the people I can trust, and I am confident that Yako will be able to treat me because, at a time when all of you have almost lost hope, he is the only one who refuses to give up. Yes, the princess knew that all of these were just painkillers, nothing more, and knew that they had lost hope. At that time, Yako pulls himself together and enters the palace lab. Without hesitation, he uses his abilities and builds a huge mass of barriers behind the door to prevent anyone from entering. He thinks of all the ways for the appropriate treatment, and yes, I will merge more than one type of treatment to completely eliminate this virus. He thinks of complex compounds and starts drawing them. He barely finishes drawing the compound and uses his abilities to create it. A great energy surrounds him, and finally, he manages to make the medicine. But suddenly, the door breaks over his head. Bran then enters and asks him, "What exactly are you doing?" Yako says to him, "As you see, I am making medicine for the princess." Here, Bran informs him that the White Death has no cure and that anyone who contracts it has a known end. Yako confirms to him that he has the treatment and ignores his words. He continues making his medicine and boom, an attack shreds the paper he has. Bran has completely transformed and prepares a terrifying attack on his son and says to him, "If you don't understand what you're doing right now, I will finish you off." And Bran looks very loyal to the princess and worried about her, my friend, to the point that he thought his son was making poison for her or something, and he stupidly attacks his son. It is Yako who blocks all the blows. Suddenly, a huge ice wall forms between them. Bran is frozen in place from shock. He says, "How are you able to do this without even saying an incantation or using your magic staff?" He says to him, "Who exactly are you, Yako? He was never this strong." He notices his notebook like this, flips through it, and finds a tremendous number of chemical compounds that could treat many incurable diseases. Suddenly, he notices the sacred mark on his shoulder and asks his son, "Since when is it like this?" He replies to him saying, "I've been like this since I woke up from the last accident." Finally, Bram cuts in, saying, Yako is no ordinary person, and that he indeed possesses supernatural abilities. After that, he decides to give him the chance to make the medicine. He says to him, "Finish it, come on, the medicine, quickly, we don't have time." Suddenly, Yako removes the ice wall in front of him, shocking his father. The man, oh my eyes, can't believe what is happening, and stands frozen in place. As for Yako, he continues making the medicine for the princess. After a little while, we find him coming out among the doctors with the medicine completely finished. He gathers himself and goes to the princess to present his medicine to her. But first, he decides to use the microscope he made to let the princess know exactly what disease she has. He says to her, "Look like this through the opening in front of you towards the light." He has one of the servants bring a candle closer to it, and there, the princess is literally shocked. A very large number of bacteria are before her eyes, and this is exactly the disease she has. The princess then calls for Kine and gives him the microscope. The first time he looks inside, he is frozen in place. Him too. All the doctors are amazed by Yako's invention, and no one can believe what they are seeing. Yako then begins to explain to them that this is a virus that infects the lungs with a large number of active bacteria that multiply very quickly. But he was able to make a medicine that will completely eliminate these bacteria, but she must continue taking it for a full 6 months. The period is long, of course, but she will return to how she was, even better. He pours 2 cups of the medicine and drinks 1 in front of them to prove to everyone that it is not dangerous or anything he knows. After that, he says that he will follow up with her himself throughout the treatment period. After that, we find all the doctors gathering around him and asking him to tell them more about the microscope and the new medicine he discovered. After some time passes, Bran is sitting with Yako, and they are exchanging information together. Bran is so amazed by his son, and here Yako tells him that he intends to publish the method of preparing the new medicine among the common people, because this will help save a very large number of lives. Bran says to him, "If you do this, your life will certainly be in danger, and there will be many people whose main goal is to finish you off. But I am with you, so don't worry about anything," as if Yako wouldn't be able to protect himself. When Karsi asks him what he wants, for example, money or authority, or both together, but the shock is that Yako says to him, "My only goal in life is to have my own clinic, not a big one, through which I can treat all people without looking at their social status or even their financial level. Deserve the same hope in life too." Anyway, since her health is recovering, he tells her she must continue the medicine until the full treatment period is over, and he leaves her after that and walks away. After a few months like this, the princess recovers. Anyway, here, the princess calls for Bran, greets him, thanks him, and gives him the region of Arsel as a gift for him. And we learn that this region is full of very rare medicinal herbs. The boy gets nervous like this and says to them that he needs a little time to prepare himself. Suddenly, Noor enters with them. If these workers you're talking about don't start immediately, they will be executed according to the law. Yes, by God, just as I'm telling you. And suddenly like this, he snaps out of it, takes a pen, and starts drawing the shape of the clinic to be implemented. Yako thinks to himself and says, "I know many clinic names in my parallel world that I was living in first." And there, the man can't believe it and holds back his words and makes a sign written on it, Parallel World Clinic. How sweet. Is he joking or what? That name then pleases Noor very much. While they are standing, we find a strange man like this going towards them, asking, "Who is the owner of this place?" Yako says to him, "I am the owner of the place," and asks him if he needs help, meaning. Suddenly, we find the man laughing, and we learn that his name is San, and he is the head of the Common Physicians Guild. He starts mocking Yako and says to him, "But you should open a candy store for children," and he keeps bullying him too. Noor was about to intervene, but Yako stops her. "Come on." And indeed, San gets terrified of her and gathers himself and runs away quickly. After some time passes, we learn that the clinic is ready for everything. Yako managed to get all the tools he might use, but he needs someone to stand with him, handle the accounts, and help him, meaning in managing the place. And management and accounting part, he thinks, needs someone a bit older. When he goes home, he finds everyone crying. And of course, Bram agrees. Not only that, but he also gives him a very large box and says to him, "Come on, open it." He will need a large capital with him to manage his clinic, and he lets him know that this is the least thing he can offer him amid the amazing success he has achieved. After a full month passes, we find Yako sitting with Cedar, and Cedar suggests that they write the prices of examination and treatment outside, and this will help a very large group of patients to enter the clinic. After a little while, Bran and Lisa come to check on him and take a tour of his clinic. Yako remembers when he arrives, he finds a large crowd of people surrounding the patient's carriage. He asks them to make way and enters the carriage quickly. He finds the patient, oh my eyes, unable to even speak, traces of wounds on her hands. He understands that she, Mila and Talon. He finds them sitting on the shore playing with the sand. Suddenly, Mila asks him to go into the sea, but unfortunately, he stood helpless before the illness that had how terrified Talon was of him. And suddenly, he finds Talon standing in front of him, asking if he needs anything from her. People, as you can see, are standing in line at the place. And suddenly, Yako spots two veiled people. They look very strange. He goes over to them and asks if he can help them with anything, but they don't answer him and leave him, walking away. And what's their story? Anyway, the day ends, and the next morning, one of the guards him like crazy, and boom, the place is completely destroyed. The news reaches Bon and Yako at home. They don't know who did this. Bram decides to send a full report of what happened to the princess. As for Yako, he pulls himself together to go to the clinic. And when Bram asks him if he suspects anyone, suddenly, we find one of the patients who was treated by him, along with a group of young people, decided to help Yako. Immediately, Yako takes that girl and goes towards the place she told him about. After a while, he notices that he is very far from here. We learn that they are the sect of temple priests. And these guys, sir, have authority that might be greater than the princess herself. News reached them from someone who happened to see Yako by chance when he was saving Mila. And suddenly, this seal is erased from existence. One of the priests says, "How did this happen? This is impossible." And we learn that this seal is specialized for demons and evil spirits. And one of them attacks him immediately. A terrifying whirlwind of fire surrounds him from everywhere, and it seems like it's the end for him. But no, Yako creates a magical. He is hit with them, and boom, the place is literally blown up. You think this is the end? No, by God, this is just the beginning. We find Yako standing in front of them like this, not even scratched, and around him a barrier of ice. He says, "You brought this upon yourselves," and whoop on the ground and say, "They are ready for any punishment." Yako is surprised by what is happening and doesn't understand what they are doing. And whoop, the high priest takes and a crazy idea comes to him, and of course he carries it out. He sits as human, and of course Yako is very happy and thanks him for it. After that, he takes Mila and Talon on a tour around the kingdom because he had promised his sister that of a commoner's pharmacy, asking the doctor why he doesn't sell the products available in the parallel world clinic of Yako, meaning that this would definitely reduce the pressure on them, not to mention that it would save a lot of time for the patients. But the doctor tells her that the guild will reject this in every way, and it's also possible that penalties will fall upon us. We go to San, the head of the Commoners Physicians Guild, who is holding a meeting, and his entire goal is how to destroy Yako, and finds out that she has a cold that only God knows about, and it's what caused all this. Anyway, Bullied notices how amazing Yako is and is very impressed, and he pays attention to the finest details of the patient. Not only that, but he also weighs her to determine the appropriate dose of medicine for her and emphasizes that she should stay at the clinic until the end of the day until her health improves. In the evening, we find Bullied taking his daughter home because her health has improved and she is fine. Here, Yako gives him a dose of medicine for 5 days, and after that, he should come back to the clinic again. Bullied thanks Yako and says to him, "I definitely don't have the cost of what you did, nor the cost of the medicine, but I promise I will bring you all the amount you ask for." Yako says to him, "Okay, anyway, the cost will be 1 coin, not more." Bullied, when he finds out, is shocked and says to him, "This is a very cheap price for what you did. You definitely need more." And at that moment, he realizes the purpose of the clinic and why the head of the Commoners Guild is fighting it. Anyway, Bullied goes home, and we find him sitting by himself. Suddenly, his wife, whose name, by the way, is Lena, tells him that their daughter has improved a lot because of the medicine he gave her. Bullied tells her that the medicine is from the clinic, and Yako specifically is the one who examined her. He even managed to treat her very easily after he failed to provide her with any help, despite being a doctor himself. He also tells her how amazing the place is, and that Yako has tremendous medical knowledge. Despite all this, the cost of treatment is almost free, unlike the guild, which always exploits people's illnesses to achieve financial gains. And whoever doesn't have money for treatment treatment is destined to die. He cries over his situation and says, "I wish I could from the guild and prevented from practicing his profession as a doctor." She tries to console him and stand by him and people with him if anyone has an idea on how to bring down that clinic. Meanwhile, Bullied decides to intervene and tells them how much hatred fills their hearts and that the arrives for Baram. We learn it's from Firo, who is Yako's older brother. When Baram opens it, he becomes very tense and asks, but Firo says he has manuscripts of the microscopic images that appeared during the analyses. Immediately, Yako requests copies of those manuscripts, import disease from spreading, especially in the coming days. Here, Noor gets an idea and tells him, "We must cancel the international trade market immediately." But how can they do that? The trade ships have already entered the territory. Yako collects himself and goes to Baran. He tells him that this is the Black Death. Of course, Baran isn't shocked or anything, because he's been doing research for a while and was suspecting that disease was considered a legend, and no one had ever found a cure for it. And if this disease enters the capital, its fate will be doom. And here, Yako says to him, "Do you think I'm playing around here or what?" He shocks him by revealing that he has created a cure for this disease, and not only that, but he has also distributed it to a large number of pharmacies in the Royal. He goes to the next ship, and while he is in his boat, we find the captain of one of the ships, by God, is fiercely request to the doctors. He tells them, surely the group that unloaded their goods via the village is now on their way to the capital. Guards at the village entrance to ensure no one enters or leaves until he confirms their complete recovery. He then lets them know that he must return to the capital immediately and tells them that the ice barrier will enhance the speed of their treatment. If anything new happens, they burned the goods they had, exactly as Yako asked them to. There, Yako approaches the merchants and tells them, "Initially, all of you are infected with the Black Death, and I will not give you the treatment until you answer my questions first." He asked them about the number of carriages that entered the village and the exact type of goods that were new. They inform him that 4 carriages entered the village, 3 of them contained textiles and furnishings, and 1 of them carried animals, specifically white squirrels. And here Yako is shocked. Yes, the white squirrel is the cause of the plague spreading in the kingdom. The shock is that he learns there were 5 of the sacred knights present on that ship who came down to the village with them but disappeared, and no one knows where they went. At this point, Yako realizes that the spread of this disease is not a coincidence. No, surely there is someone behind what is happening. He then asks the doctors to treat those merchants. As for him, he must head to the royal capital immediately. On the other hand, we go to the royal capital. We find Talon standing, distributing painkillers to people and helping them spread health awareness and prevention methods. As for Baird, samples arrive for him that he is supposed to analyze. We learn that these samples belong to merchants present at the capital's gate. Indeed, Baird begins to analyze them to ensure the merchant's safety before they enter here. But the catastrophe is that he finds some samples infected with the disease. He becomes terrified, saying that they must be isolated and treated immediately. He, along with the rest of the medical team with him, runs towards the gate, and boom, we find a terrifying attack on the guards, destroying everything in its path. He tries to close the gates, but unfortunately, the group of sacred knights attacks him with utter stupidity, breaches the gates, and the catastrophe is that they enter, bringing with them a wooden box containing a group of white squirrels carrying the disease with them. They release them. One of the knights uses his abilities and scatters them everywhere. It looks like this is the end, my friend. Baird, when he sees his Baran and lands to check on him first. They take each other and go together towards the gate. We find the chief of guards interrogating the knights, asking them what their purpose is in spreading diseases in this manner. The shock is that the knights, he kidnapped their families and forced them to carry out his words literally. When they describe his appearance, Baran is frozen in place. We then go into a flashback and learn that Baran had a very close friend. His name, by the way, was Tajo, but he was devoid of humanity and conducted horrifying experiments on humans. Over time, he began to lose his sanity, and his entire goal was to dominate the world, nothing less. Consequently, he was ostracized as a physician and disappeared a long time ago. His reputation vanished completely, and surely now he is back for revenge and uses his sacred eye. He is shocked by what he sees, a terrifying specter standing near them, specifically on the roof of his clinic.